we were discussing the various ways in which somebody can be said to provide something. So the literal way is if John causes, turns the light on, if A causes B, then you say that John caused the light. And then he said by linguistic extension, you could also talk about providing something that doesn't exist, that's an absence. For example, if let's not use John as more traditional to blame the Shvatim. So if Reuven shuts the light off, we say he provided darkness. So that's one way in which not, being the cause, being the reason that the cause of light is not there is a way of saying that you caused an absence. The second category he had was if you if you actively prevent the cause. So Reuven shutting off the light would be Reuven caused darkness, provided darkness. Second one would be Shimon wants to light the light, but Levi tackles him. So then we say that Levi is the cause of the darkness because he did something actively to prevent the light, the chain of causality that would cause light. When it comes to not doing anything at all, like, where are we up to? Yehuda sits there and has a couple of beers, and therefore it's dark. We usually do not say that Yehuda caused the darkness because every son after Yehuda also did absolutely nothing to turn on the light or shut off the light or guard the light switch so nobody would flip it. So in that sense, when it comes to people, not acting is not considered the cause of something being absent. Right? Omission and commission are different things, are starkly different things when it comes to people. And then he says, but that's different by HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And that's where we're going to pick up over here at the highlighted words. This is by human action. But when we deal with God, with Hashem, it's not like that. If something in the human realm, right, is missing, we don't say that a person caused it. It doesn't tell us that. It doesn't tell us whether or not the person intended to have darkness. Yehuda could have gone to have a drink in order to avoid the light switch, but he could have also gone to have a drink because his best friend is is a new father and they went out to celebrate. I mean, who knows? But an inaction doesn't prove that he's out to make it dark. It would be the same inaction if light versus dark didn't enter his calculations at all. Because it could be that there was some other cause that he didn't flip the light switch. They didn't do the action. But when we talk about God causing darkness, God causing a lack, you know that it was intentional. There is no, oops, I was busy doing something else, so I didn't act. Right? And it can't be that it was too much work, and therefore Hashem didn't do something. Just as God cannot act without intending to act, and similarly, he couldn't not act if it wasn't a conscious decision not to act. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu, inaction and action, they're both considered causing. So when we talk about Yotzer Or Uvori Choshech, we could say that Hashem creates darkness, not because the Ran believes that darkness is a thing, but because Hashem choosing not to create light is as much a conscious choice and a cause as his choosing to make light. This is what Hashem answered, Mi sam pela adam, who gave a human being a mouth. This was Hashem's reply to Moshe when Moshe said, why are you sending me? Why aren't you sending my brother? The full pasuk's on the side. Mi sam pela adam, o mi yasum ilaim, o cheresh o pikeach, o iver halo anochi Hashem. Right? Who makes somebody who is Elaim, who is trying to think how we say this word nowadays. Differently abled? No, that's a little too PC to the point of humor. But who creates somebody who's disabled?
Nonverbal.
Thank you. O cheresh, or deaf, o pikeach, o iver, right? So cheresh o pikeach, right? He is deaf or open or healthy. Oh, iver, or somebody who is blind. By the way, little tangent there. You notice that the word for blind is skin. So I have a cousin who's blind, and he says it's because the Hakadosh Baruch Hu is describing a blind person as somebody who sees with his skin. So that's why Iverin or Shorish. But he's the kind of guy who could have meant it as Chassidish Torah, not literally. But either way, it's a nice thought. Yata Leich. So now you, Moshe, go v'anochi ehyeh picha, and I, Hashem, will be with your mouth. V'reisecha asher tedaber, and I will teach you what you should say. So that's Hashem's answer. Ich tashuv sheyoso ne'adar tzachot hadibor hu davar nifel b'mikra. So how could you think that the fact that you cannot speak, which notice he's phrasing as an eder, he's not phrasing Moshe's speech impediment as a thing, he's phrasing it as an absence of the power of speech. So do not think that it's something that just happened by chance. Misam peh, who gave a mouth, Palomar, just like the acquisition of speech by a person is something that shows that God intended it. And the lack of speech for the mute, moral kavana mimenu, shows that Hashem intended that. The ain davar b'pulosav nofel b'mikra, nothing that he does is by accident. Lo akinyan v'lo heder shebahem, not the acquisition of a property or its lack. So everything should be blamed or accredited to Hashem with full intent from him. So with this pasuk, Hashem is saying, no, I did this on purpose. From Hashem, from him, the Siba Asher Zacharnu, the reason which we gave, which was so that nobody thinks that Moshe was some kind of charismatic, eloquent leader who convinced everybody on the power of rhetoric. So Hashem sent somebody who had very little capacity for impressive rhetoric. No, this is, by the way, it's a theme. Moshe was designed so that you knew for sure that the message was authentic. And it was done in Egypt, right? Why were we exiled to Egypt? Because Egypt knows how to do magic tricks and real magic, although he uses both languages. And therefore, if you go to the experts, they'll know that this is something more real. And why was there Yetzias Mitzrayim at all? Because This way, you know that Hashem intervenes in history, so Matan Torah is real. Everything is about proof of reality. That's the theme that seems to be recurring in the past few shiurim. Is that Inyan Beruhu Rabosenu Zal the Medrash Rabbah? And Chazal explain this in Medrash Rabbah when they say V'Yamar Hashem Elov. Hashem says to Moshe, Misa Sampeh. Yeah, he's using the same pasuk again and again and again. Amar Lo. So now the Medrash says, Im einata ish devarim al tachush. If you're not a man of words, don't be concerned. Hello, ani barasi kol piyos shebaolam. I created all the mouths in the world. Vanini asisi ilay mi shechavatzti. And I made mute, incapable of speech, whoever I wanted to. V'cheresh v'iver upikeach l're'iyah upikeach l'shmiyah. Similarly, the deaf and the blind and somebody who could hear, could see, and somebody who could hear. V'mani chafatzti, if I had I wanted to, shetiya ish devarim, that you would be a eloquent speaker, tiya kamokain, that's what you would have been. Ela lasos b'choneis ani chafetz. I want this to be miraculous. I want to do a miracle through you. Beisha tedaber tiyu devarecha nechonim. When you speak, your words will be clear. Shani ehye im picha, because I will be with your mouth. Hada hu dichsiv, this was the second pasuk we learned. Shani ehye im picha. Vim kol zeh biyos kashel Moshe sheyidaber im paro biyos erech zosayim. Nasan lo Hashem yisparach miturgaman le miturgaman Aharon. Even through all this, even though when he spoke there was a miracle that he was understandable, when he spoke, I assume only nevu'ah, because otherwise you would never know that he had a speech impediment. You would have thought he was healed. So when it was hard, even though it was hard for Moshe to speak to Paro because he stammered, I'm assuming that's what Erech Sfasayim means. Long of lip, kind of sounds like it's hard to get the words out, but I don't really know. So some kind of speech impediment. Yeah, but he has Erech. Aral Sfasayim is what the pasuk. Well, let me finish. Nissan lo Hashem yisparach l'miturgaman Aharon. So Hashem gave him Aharon as a spokesman. So yeah, so the Marsha says that it's Aral Sfasayim means that he couldn't pronounce the labial letters, and every name of Hashem, right? Havaya has the vav, Elokim has the mem. So Hashem gives him the name Ehya Shar Ehya. Notice there's no letters made with your lips, and therefore, so this is the way the Maharsha reads it. So it's a total tangent to the Ran, but it's cute. The Medrash says that they knew from the days of Yaakov that the Redeemer was going to call God Ehya Shar Ehya. And Sarach had this tradition, and it was known when Moshe showed up. So what kind of sign is it? It's like, every false Messiah is going to buy a white donkey and ride in on it, because that's how you satisfy the signs. If everybody knows what the sign is, then the sign doesn't really work. But what happens when the guy shows up and he couldn't pronounce any of the normal shemos of Hashem, and now he comes with this strange Shem Hashem that he's able to pronounce? Now they understand the simon much better than when the simon was given. They think he's going to call Hashem Ha'eya Asher Eya, and now they know he was kind of forced to. I mean, he could have called him Kel and Elok also, but the point was that he uses a strange Shem Hashem, and now they know the significance of this thing that they heard of for 200 years. But I thought the Maharsha is kind of elegant. But now that Any comments? Because we're about to switch topics. That's why I have a little subtitle over here. Okay. So now that we mentioned that even though he was able to be understood because of the miracle, Hashem still gave him a Turgaman. So now we brought in Aharon. So now he's going to spend a little time analyzing what Aharon's situation was in all this. V'imiyos Aharon gadol mimenu, the kodem alav nevu'ah. So we already established, well, everybody knows because it's straight math in the Pesach, that Aharon was older than Moshe. But he also gave nevu'ah when they were still in Mitzrayim. That was a few pages ago. Therefore, Aharon really had reason to be envious of Moshe, especially if you think of the second Derashah and all the talk about Yaakov and Esav, where Esav assumed that he was the older brother, therefore he would be the king. And now we have Aharon, who he doesn't set up the contrast. This is my own doing. Who not only was the older brother, but he was navi before his brother shows up, right? So he had real reason to wonder why he's being skipped over. And Chazal mentioned this as how great Aharon was, that he therefore got rewarded for it. Amar b'perek Rabbi Lezer Tolin. Now that I left it alone, I should have checked. Okay, because it looks like a typo to me. But anyway, it's in Shabbos. V'amar Rabbi Milai. I mean, in common parlance nowadays, we just call it Perek Rabbi Lezer, except no, we don't. We usually use numbers nowadays. But when I was a kid, it was Perek Rabbi Lezer. V'amar Rabbi Milai, b'schar v'ra'acha v'samach b'libo, that
We
he will
call this
see.
one Thailand usually. We don't call this one Rabbi Eliezer.
Oh,
There's at least two other Rabbi Eliezers that start
yeah.
with
There's
Perek.
Rabbi Lezer Demila, and I mean that's why there's a deh, right?
That's why what?
That's why there's a deh, because there's also Rabbi Lezer Demila.
And there's a third one also,
Okay,
I believe.
I'll
Yeah,
believe you.
I believe.
Yeah.
That's what we call Rabbi Eliezer Demila, Rabbi Eliezer Demila, because there's another Rabbi Eliezer, I
Okay.
believe.
Yeah. No, I seem to remember Rabbi Lezer and Rabbi Lezer Demila. But okay, it doesn't. It's
Well,
not.
they are one after the other. Rabbi Eliezer Demila is
Yeah.
the 19th parak, and this is the 20th parak.
Okay. V'amar Rabbi Lai, v'schar v'ra'acha v'samach b'libo. In that for reward of he will see you and he'll be happy. Zachal choshen mishpat al libo. So that's why Aharon merited the choshen mishpat. But this statement in the Gemara requires explaining. Madua nisyaches zeh hagemula Aharon al tov levavo b'nevuas Moshe. Why was the choshen mishpat considered a reward for Aharon on being good about Moshe being the navi of all time? You know, the numero uno. Yoser mikama malo shahayu lara mitzad kunaso. More so than any of the other things that Aharon was granted as a Kohen. In other words, why was the Choshen Mishpat the reward for being happy for Moshe and not the tzitz? Or and flip side, why is it related to Moshe and not related to his kuna? Like, why are we singling out the Choshen? It's not, to my mind, the answer is stronger than the question, because what would be your guess what the answer is? What would be the guess? How does a choshen differ from the other begadim?
It's an independent conduit of nevu'ah itself.
That's it. So I thought this short little question I thought was just a segue because his answer. I mean, that's obviously his answer. Utshuva b'zeh shekvar hodianu Rabbeinu zal. The answer to this is that Chazal already told us. The Mishnah and Sota, although he quotes he quotes the citation that I got. I don't know if it's in the original Ron or where, but somebody said Testament Beis, but it's actually the Mishnah Ches and Tes. But anyway, Shekol midosav shalakadosh baruch hu mida keneged mida. Everything Hashem does is mida keneged mida. Kamosha shaninu b'mishnah seinu, like we saw in the Mishnah, b'chein le'inyan hatova. So after discussing all this on the side, and it goes on about punishments that were mida keneged mida, the Mishnah test starts b'chein le'inyan hatova. Also for reward, it's also mida keneged mida, measure for measure. Hashem rewards in kind. So this is the second mission over here. It's now on the top of the screen. V'chein le'inyan hatova, Miriam. So also when it's good, reward is also mida keneged mida. Miriam himtina l'Moshe sha'achas. Miriam waited for Moshe just an hour. Shenemar, but I can't read the kudos on this side print. I gotta make it a little bigger yet. But save achosome rachop. His sister stood from afar. Lefichach nizaktu lo Yisrael shiva yomim bamidbar, and as a reward for that, therefore, um, all of Klal Yisrael waited for 7 days when she had saras in the midbar. Shademar va'am lo nasa ad hayasef Miriam. The nation didn't move until Miriam was gathered, meaning Miriam could re-enter the Machane Yisrael because her taras was gone. Yosef zacha likbores aviv. Yosef merited to bury his father. Bein balchiv gadol mimenu. None of his brothers were greater than him. Shenemar v'yal Moshe likbores aviv. V'yal imo gam rechev gam parashim. Yosef went to bury his father, and all of the chariots and foot soldiers came with him. Milanu Gadomi Yosef, who was greater than Yosef? Shalom Nisakev Bo El Moshe. Who waited for Yosef? Moshe. Moshe Zachabatmos Yosef. Bein B'Yisrael Gadomi Menu. No one's greater than Moshe, and Moshe waited for Yosef because Yosef took his father to burial in Eretz Yisrael. He was zoche that Moshe himself took his atzamos to be buried in Eretz Yisrael. Shenemar v'yikach Moshe atzmos Yosef imo. Mi gadol mi Moshe shalom nisasek bo ela hamakom. And what's Moshe's reward for burying Yosef, for bringing Yosef to Eretz Yisrael? He doesn't bury him because he doesn't get there. Shalom nisasek bo ela hamakom. HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself buries Moshe. So each time they're rewarded with something greater than what they did. Shedemar v'yikbara so bagai. Buried him in the valley. Lo al Moshe bilvad amru, ela al kol tzadikim. Shedemar v'alach lefanecha tzidkacha kvod Hashem yasfecha, which is a tangent because that didn't have to do with being rewarded mida keneged mida. But his point here is that exactly as Steg had guessed, Rabbi Belsky had guessed, the what's it called? The reason for the choshen is because it's associated, right? It's mida keneged mida with Moshe getting nevu'ah. V'ratza zeh Hashem yisbarach kadei shetishyashev inyan hashgacha b'leiv b'nei adam, so that the matter of hashgacha pratis, well, here it's just hashgacha of providence, would be settled in the minds of people. If if the reward, didn't happen, and in the in the way that the action happened, people might blame it on chance. Somebody's bound to get it. So, it happened to be him. But if the reward is exactly in the same thing that the action was, then you know that this is through Hashem's providence. It's hashgacha, menu. So now he's carrying on the idea that everything Hashem does is with intent, l'shalem tov, l'tovim, and it's from conscious intent, conscious being an anthropomorphication, but whatever. It's with intent from HaKadosh Baruch Hu to reward good to those who are good. Do you think that this is this the argument that you would have given for Mida Keneged Mida? I mean, I personally am uncomfortable with it for two reasons. Well, actually for one reason, but I thought the reason was different. So the second one was, well, what about the one I was told when I was a kid? Nobody? The problem I have with this is, in Eastern religion, in Hinduism, the concept of karma reduces reward to causal. And what you put out there is what you get. So I don't really see Mida Keneged Mida requiring somebody to believe that the Abishta caused it. Because there are plenty of people who believe in Mida Keneged, who don't believe in an Abishter, at least not the way we do. I mean, that's not correct. Hindus do believe in a single creative deity, in some way. But in any case, you don't have to believe in hashgacha in order to believe that there's a reason why the reward came in the same way as your action.
But where did it come from?
Well, that's karma. Karma
Yeah,
is
but where does that? What's the cause for karma?
That's like asking what's the cause for gravity. They don't believe in
So
karmas.
it's a force of nature, right? And in a world that was created. So it was created by something or some things.
Yeah, but that's like saying Mikra is a force in a world that was created. So Mikra shows that there's a God.
Well, Mikra essentially is saying the lack of karma. Right? It's saying the opposite of that.
Right. Mikra is the
Right,
lack of a
Jordy, what
law.
I'm saying is if there's a law of the universe and the universe has a prime cause, a first cause, then it's not impersonal if you just go one step up.
Well, it's impersonal because it's a law of the universe as opposed to being a response of God.
Okay.
I mean, the whole difference between saying it's karma and saying schar va'onesh is from hashgacha pratis is whether or not you put God in the loop.
Can I read one more chapter?
I'll let.
Sorry. Get that. Okay. It's bedtime for the podcast.
Okay. Yeah, I understand. So, okay, so you're more comfortable with it than I am. The other thing that bothered me was just because I had this preconceived notion that the reason for Mida Keneged Mida was constructive. Meaning, if a person sins, because that's, where we usually talk about Mida Keneged Mida, if a person sins in a certain way, he creates self-damage, right? And that's what needs correcting. So that's what Hashem is going to, that's the button Hashem's going to push. And somebody who understands that, it's not the walls of the house that's protecting him, it's, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So then the mezuzah protects, not because, I'm not giving some Kabbalistic mechanistic explanation. From a rationalist point of view, somebody who doesn't need to be reminded that he has to pray for his security doesn't give reason. It doesn't need the reasons to pray the way somebody who, you understand what I'm saying? Like somebody who gives a lot of tzedakah, right, doesn't need to be challenged with money. Somebody who has problems with how they relate to money needs to think about money, so they're going to get challenges with money. That was the way I understood Mida Keneged Mida. I don't know where I picked that up, but like it's long enough ago that I think I got it from a grade school Rebbe. That Hashem pushes whatever button needs pushing. So whatever you did wrong or did right, that's what's going to show up in your life. It's kind of, Tina, it's kind of like what Alan says about curriculum, right? Hashem draws your attention to the thing. Alan Marinis's shita is that life is kind of like a place where you learn midos. So everything that happens in your life is there because Hashem is presenting you with the curriculum. So that would explain Mida Keneged Mida, because the curriculum has to match the. So I'm not sure what the Ran would say to this. In other words, I want to suggest that we don't know the Ran's full relationship to Mida Keneged Mida. His recurring theme was, as I pointed out before we switched to the topic of Aharon and the Choshen and Mida Keneged Mida, is that everything is about us being aware of Hashem's presence. Right? That's why Moshe was the way Moshe was, and Mitzrayim, and Yitzias Mitzrayim, and all of it was to reinforce the idea that Matan Torah and the Torah really is divine wisdom. It would therefore fit for him to focus on this role of Mida Keneged Mida, so that you know that Schar Va'onish is coming from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I don't know if we could actually say that just because he doesn't raise other topics, he doesn't believe there are other reasons. The Ran could just be focusing on the one reason that seems to be the recurring theme of this drasha. But whether or not the Ran actually believes there are multiple reasons, I mean, Micha Berger can. I mean, isn't it, right? There's two things here, right? There's learning the Ran, and then there's integrating into my own worldview, which is not always going to be the same as the Ran's. So my worldview has room for both. But yeah, so therefore Chazal associated Zehagmul Aharon, this reward to Aharon, Tacha Zehapoel, for the action of being excited that Moshe was made the head navi. Yoser mikama malos tovos shayu b'kuna gedola, more so than some of the other boons he got by being the Kohen Gadol. Shehumore shelo zacha Aharon lezos hamala, because it teaches that Aharon wouldn't have merited this particular level, ki im ligmul mizeh poel, except as reward for that particular action. Ki davar yiduahu shal yidei choshen hayanoda inyana esidos, because it's known that through the choshen you can know the future. V'zelo hayaroi sheyigil lechalko shel Aharon. That is not inherently a feature of kahuna that it should have been the portion of Aharon. Kiodas hasidus hu davar roi lenavi lo lekohen. Knowing the future, that's prophecy. That's not priesthood. Ki kamoshem inyan hanavi hagadas hasidus lo inyan ha'avodos klal. Listening to the navi talk about what's going to happen has nothing at all to do with avodah in the Beis Hamikdash. They're just different tasks. Ki inyan hakohen masa avos lo inyas asidos, and the avodah, the kohen in the Beis Hamikdash is not about telling the future. These are two different roles. B'Shema Tomar Shekivan Shiratzah Kodesh Hashem Yisbarach Sheyi Kohen Gadol Shamish Bishmona Kalim. If you're going to say that maybe Hashem wanted the Kohen Gadol has 8 items of clothing, Asher Choshen Miklalam, and the Choshen is one of the 8. Haron Lizos Hamala Mitzad Kunaso, and therefore you see that he got the Choshen because of his Kahuna. In Cain, you're wrong. It's not that. Choshen Einu Magid Asidos Mitzad Hiyoso Choshen Lavad. The Choshen doesn't tell the future because it's the Choshen. Ella Mitzad Urim veTumim Shayu Ben Feilav. So the Urim veTumim, which was put between the folds of the Choshen and the ephod, Shalo Hayu Miklal Begadav, and the Urim veTumim is not one of the 8 Begadim. So this one also I had a little bit of a problem with because the words of the Medrash were Zacha l'Choshen Mishpat al Libo, not Zacha l'Urim veTumim al Libo. And he's making a point of distinguishing between the Choshen and the Urim veTumim. You would have thought that the Medrash that the Agadah, the Gemara would have also. So I think it's a difficulty. You also, by the way, have a difficulty according to Rashi, who says the Urim veTumim was just another name for the Choshen. And yeah, I know, like a lot of us were taught in day school that it was a cloth with Shemos of Hashem that was put behind the Choshen. But Rashi actually says Urim veTumim with the letters on the stones that lit up, and therefore it was the Urim veTumim. Not that it was the thing that caused the letters to light up, but it was the letters themselves. Either way, though, one can make a distinction by office. So the Choshen in Bayesheni was still a Choshen Mishpat, even though none of these miracles happened. So Urim veTumim is above and beyond the Choshen. It's, in other words, the Gemara, the Ran's point works better according to Rashi than according to the Ran. Because according to Rashi, the Gemara is talking about the Choshen, and the Choshen is the Urim veTumim. And he's saying that the role of Urim veTumim that goes beyond the 8 Begadim, that was his reward. Not the role of the Choshen as Big Day Kahuna. Because Big Day Kahuna is Kohen things. And the Urim veTumim role of the Choshen is nevu'ah things. And therefore, it's Mida Keneged Mida for being happy that Moshe was made navi. The way the Ran has it, it still works, but by making it 2 roles, we're left with that problem of the wording in the Gemara. One possibility is
In the Medrash, you mean, right?
Medrash Rabbah, right?
Right.
One possibility is, by the way, that he had different wording in the Medrash and in his manuscript. But I mean, I really don't. Once you start playing with guesses about wording, you could go anywhere. It would be nice to actually have evidence that there was such a girsa, right? but yeah, but I really don't know what to do here because we're just going to ignore the language problem and get on with the philosophical point. So yeah, but he definitely says Shayu ben Kfelav Shalo Hayu Biklal Begadav. So unlike Rashi, the Ran says that Urim veTumim was a different thing than the Choshen, and it was behind the Choshen, and it caused the Choshen to be prophetic. Varaya od bezeh Urim veTumim lo huzkaru kan beseder v'ele pekudei maseh habegadim klal. And it was not mentioned here in the order of Eila Pekudei, the Parsha, when it discusses the clothing. Now, you might remember that I said on day 1, when he was talking about a Chodesh Hazeh Lachem, which is where we have to end up, that somebody deduced from this that this drasha was given on Parshas HaChodesh, not when it got up to Chodesh Hazeh Lachem in Shmos in the Parsha. The reason is because he calls the Parsha Eila Pekudei Kan. Lo Huzkaru Kan Beseder. He doesn't say sham. He says kan here. So and Parshas Pekudei often is Parshas HaChodesh. So the wording fits this drasha being given on Shabbos, Parshas Pekudei, Parshas HaChodesh. And that's why he's bringing the Urim veTumim on his way to getting back to Rosh Chodesh. It's clever. It definitely explains why these themes are being brought up, if they're like both in today's laning. But either way, the as the Ramban points out, the Urim veTumim are not mentioned among the clothing. Again, the Ramban and the Ran being the Castilian, school, which seems to have consensus that there was a separate parchment called Urim veTumim that Moshe wrote. Ki Omar vayas es hachoshen, lo Omar vayas es ha'urim ve'esatumim. This is when I noticed the language problem in the Medrash, because he points out the difference in language in the pasuk. The pasuk in Pekudei just talks about choshen; it doesn't talk about the Urim veTumim. This is not what the artisans made who were making the big dekuna made at all. Moshe was separately commanded to make his brother Urim veTumim. So it says in Parshas Tetzaveh, "Nasata el choshen hamishpat es ha'urim ve'esatumim," and you will we'll read it the way the Ran would. You will put toward the choshen hamishpat the Urim and the Tumim. Not choshen mishpat Urim veTumim is one thing, but you will put the Urim veTumim el hachoshen next to the choshen. You alev haAharon, and they will both be next to Aaron's heart. V'vo lifnei Hashem, when he goes into the Kodesh HaKodashim on Yom Kippur. When I saw Aharon es mishpat b'nei Yisrael, alibo lifnei Hashem tamin, and Aharon will bring the judgment of b'nei Yisrael on his heart before Hashem forever. V'chein asa, and that's what Moshe did. He was commanded to make the Urim veTumim in Parshat Tzaveh, and that's what he did. K'mo she'amar b'Parshat Tzav, v'yasem alav es hachoshen. That's the beginning of the pasuk. Moshe put the choshen on Aharon. V'yiten es hachoshen el hachoshen es ha'urim veTumim, and he put next to the choshen the Urim and Tumim. Hinei kol zeh moreh she'ein inyan Urim veTumim miklal bigdei kuna. All this shows you that it's not with the bigdei kuna because it's not one of the bigdei kuna. It gets its own separate discussions. When it's made a separate discussion, when it's put on is a separate discussion. Vim kain lama zacha bo Aharon. If so, why did Aharon get it if it's not actually kohen clothes? Lefichach dershu Razal. That's why Chazal said shezacha legmul tov ba'oso inyan ba'atzmo shero tov levavo. Hashem, he earned a reward, a good outcome, but also inyan in the very same thing that he himself saw good in his heart. She'im hiyosa kodem l'Moshe b'nevu'ah. Lonis, even though he was ahead of Moshe when it came to nevu'ah, he was a navi first. Lonis kanebo, he wasn't jealous of Moshe. Kishenivchar l'navi, when Moshe was appointed not just to nevu'ah but to be the navi. Lefichach zachu Hashem yisparach b'chelek nechbad v'hagadas hasidos. So therefore, Hashem gave him an honor, a place of honor, just like Moshe. He was happy when Moshe got a place of honor, and being able to tell the future, just like Moshe was Navi. Even though it had nothing to do with Kuna, but because he wasn't jealous of Moshe's Nevuah, he merited to see the future. Shavel Nevuah, Yoster Mimena, at least equal to a Navi or more. So why does he say or more? Because of Gemara and Yuma. Shekvar Hodianu Razal Beperak Balo Kohen Gadol. Chasidus Hanodal Sayidei Urim veTumim Mechuyavos Yoser Mehayidios Minevuah. the future that is known by the Urim veTumim is more compelled to happen than what is known through nevu'ah. Now, this actually fits the Ran's model from the previous Derashah, because the Ran said that any nevu'ah that comes with an action is already going across the Masabracious barrier from the spiritual to the physical. So a nevu'ah that actually involves letters lighting up, as opposed to all going on in a person's mind, fits his model of something that already entered the physical world and therefore is guaranteed to happen. So although the Ran doesn't tie the two together, it fits his model of spiritual cause and physical effect, or Masabracious, as he called it in the first Derashah. Amru Shamal Pi She Gezeres Hanavi Chozeres. Why do they say that Gemara over there? Because the Gemara says, Afal Pi She Gezeres Navi Chozeres, even though a decree that a Navi repeats. I mean, I'm translating it non-literally because it's the Navi is not the one commanding the future, right? The Navi is just reporting what Hashem commanded. So even though the nevu'ah that the Navi repeats, the gezerah that the Navi states, chozeres, can be returned. Gezeres Urim veTumim eina chozeres. The gezerah of the Urim veTumim is never returned. Shenemar b'mishpat Urim. It's like a judgment. It's a, you know what I mean? Like once the court imposes judgment, it's not reversed, which is a very weird thing because it means that like somebody could be known to be innocent, but he was already sentenced. But in any case, the Urim veTumim is more certain than nevu'ah. Gezeres Urim veTumim eina chozer shenemar v'shal lo b'mishpat Urim. Ma mishpat eina chozer av gezeres Urim veTumim eina chozeres. Like I just said, right? Just as you never return a decree, a judgment, you also don't ask for a refund on something the Urim veTumim, an exera the Urim veTumim revealed. Hinei shezach Aharon l'madrega gedola krova l'madregas hanevu'ah. He was given a great level that's close to the level of nevu'ah. V'lo od ela shezach bo lo uzaro, and it was more than nevu'ah in another way. It was inherited. It came with the offices of Kohen Gadol. So from Aharon until Shimon HaTzadik is how many centuries? I don't want to do the math, but you got the idea. For centuries, some prophetic like level was granted to Aharon and his family because he was excited that Moshe was made the navi, even though he was first in line. Yeah, if only Esav would have known his role in the world, Rome would have been much better off. The West would have been rewarded similarly. And we would have gotten along, and there wouldn't have been anti-Semitism. Things would have been great. Anyway, all this is a reward that he was busy with Moshe. Didn't you need to see it for trying, but no, it's kind of Moshe. So every time Moshe spoke, and he was the megaphone, he wasn't jealous of the fact that Moshe was the primary speaker, and he was just the megaphone. And therefore, as a reward, centuries of nevu'ah, and also nevu'ah that couldn't be returned. By the way, it's the Ran who's making this Gemara a compliment, because the Marsha's way of reading the Gemara is Urim veTumim. Why do you ask the Urim veTumim? Should we go for war? Go to war. The events are all short range, a day or two away from when you asked. If you make a weather forecast for tomorrow, your odds of nothing else coming up are much higher than if you give your weather forecast for what's it called, for 10 days out. So the Marsha says, why is the Urim veTumim never returned? Because it only is given nevu'ah about things that are close at hand anyway. So to him, the fact that it's never returned is actually a statement about being short term, and therefore less complimentary than the Ran makes it. It's an interesting point. But the Ran is taking this as we saw in the Gemara with Yosef, the almost king, burying Yaakov, and then Yosef is buried by Moshe. It's always one step up. So the Ran is reading the level of the Urim veTumim being more than just nevu'ah. But okay. So now we start the next topic. I'm just gonna touch it because we started late, but we're not gonna get too far into a whole new topic. And that is he's now gonna discuss what he opened with Rosh Chodesh. And then Tamazeb, for the same reason, we don't know what the same reason is yet. We get to this mitzvah, which was Rosh Chodesh, that's the opening quote, that was given to both of them. It was the first mitzvah given to both of them. The Amar Vayomer Hashem el Moshe vel Aharon. Hashem said to Moshe Aharon Beretz Mitzrayim when we were still in Egypt, like more saying, HaChodesh hazeh lechem Rosh Chodashim. This month should be for you the beginning of months. Rishonhu lechodshei shana. Nissan is the first of the for you of the months of the year. V'terech levayer, we have to explain Mandua Amar Lochem. Why does it say for you? V'lo Amar HaChodesh hazeh Rosh Chodashim. Just this month is the first month. V'tama davar, the reason ki HaChodesh hazeh mitzad atzmo inu Rosh Chodashim. This month on its own is not the first month. Ki meshar gago misnoniya mitnuas vivis. Lo yitachet sheyamar b'chelik men rosh v'lo sof. There's no beginning to a circle, right? The months go around in around in an orbit, and you can't say that there's a beginning or an end. So there's no objective beginning. It's a subjective thing that Hashem is making Nissan first. So what do we see the Ran doing in this discussion of, I'm going to try to turn this into a teaser, but it's ad hoc, so if I mess up, I mess up. What is the Ran trying to do in introducing how he introduces Rosh Chodesh? He is trying to say that it has to do with his theme of Yetzias Mitzrayim being evidence of, all leading to how we know that the Torah is the Torah. Number two, why was it given to Moshe and Aharon? Right? He's just talking about the specialness of Aharon and Aharon being secondary to Moshe. And then he makes a point of showing you that the first mitzvah actually comes to both of them. And there is no specialness of Moshe during that mitzvah. Or less. I mean, because Moshe's nevu'ah is, he said already, is unique in kind. So even if they both got the mitzvah, they didn't get it the same way. But still, he's sharing in the revelation of the mitzvah. And then the question is, why is it, why was the first mitzvah something subjective, right? This will be for you, the way you perceive the year, it'll be the first, but it's not objectively the first because any point in the year can be considered the first. So those are the questions he's going to address now that he finally got back to where he started talking about Rosh Chodesh. On a totally different note, because I like this thought, which means, of course, I made it up, because I tend to like the things I make up most. Read HaChodesh hazeh lechem very naively, right? HaChodesh hazeh lechem Rosh Chodashim l'chodshei hashana. What Shoresh keeps on like over and over and over and over and over again. He doesn't, right? He doesn't refer. The first mitzvah is right? If I were to translate this not semantically, what's the word I'm looking for? Etymologically. I should make Steg do it. He's my etymologist here, right? This
Mm-mm.
newness shall be for you, right? The head of all newness, for everything new in your repetitions. Shana l'shanot is to repeat,
Mhm.
right? And that's the first mitzvah. The first mitzvah is a mitzvah about being new in bring something new to your daily. Like I'm going to give you a discipline, a bunch of halachas that give structure to your day, and this is what you're going to do every day. But hachodesh hazelochem rosh chodashim. It should be like Nissan and the Geula, and you're starting something new, and therefore this has to be the first month because the whole idea of doing the mitzvos is to bring something new into your life, even though it's repetitions.